Okay, so thank you very much for joining me at this Planning for Successful Sleep Training webinar. I'm excited to give you lots of information about how you can make your sleep training experience a success. So first, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a child sleep and behaviour specialist. My name is Miley Sheck. I'm with Little Big Dreamers. I help parents with their parenting concerns from potty readiness, picky eating, tantrums, behaviour and sleep challenges. Today though, I'm here to focus on sleep and how you can prepare so that your sleep training experience is successful. I've been where you are myself. I've had children who weren't sleeping very well and had to do sleep training. I even hired a child sleep consultant myself way back when. And I guess that's kind of what inspired me to be one myself and why I'm here today. So let's get started. First, let's talk about the reasons why you might want to sleep train. Maybe you're beyond exhausted from regular night wakings, or you are spending hours at night trying to get your little one to sleep, only to have to do it all over again later on. Perhaps your baby or child is waking up too early in the morning. For me, I generally consider an early wake up a problem when they're waking up at 5:30 a.m. or earlier and don't go back to sleep. Maybe your little one is feeding more than they really need overnight and you'd like to change it. You don't always have to completely night wean, but you might feel that it's happening a bit too much and they don't need nearly as many feeds as they're having. You may have noticed that your baby isn't getting the restorative naps that they need because they're waking early. For a baby, it might be that they're waking after 30 to 45 minutes, but maybe a toddler who's transitioned to one nap might not be taking that hour and a half to 2 hour nap you know that they need. Or perhaps you're constantly reinserting the pacifier to get longer stretches of sleep. So what is sleep training? Sleep training is important when you can tell that your child or baby isn't getting the sleep that they need and you make a decision to change it. A well-rested child will fall asleep and stay asleep better than one who isn't. It is also about giving your child the tools they need to fall asleep independently and stay asleep. This means your little one needs to be given the opportunity to practice those skills repeatedly in order to develop their independent sleep skills. Many parents worry that sleep training means no night feedings. You can still keep night feedings for sure. I have helped many families who maintain overnight feeds and still make amazing improvements. You can also keep your breastfeeding relationship for as long as you and your little one wish it. Sleep training comes in many different forms, and there are methods to suit everyone's wishes and goals, from gentle methods where you're with your child throughout the process to more direct methods where they learn to self-soothe on their own. All methods can work very well, and I'll talk a little bit about this more towards the end. I tend to think of sleep training like learning to walk. Your little one will fall down and this may result in some crying, but you wouldn't just pick them up and carry them forever to protect them. The same goes for sleep training. They need to have that opportunity so that they can have success and learn independent sleep skills. And you can still have a wonderful, loving attachment to your child. If you are worried about crying though, it is really hard to completely get rid of that, because when you change what you're doing, there'll be some tears. So how to prepare? This is the big one. We need to have a good solid plan when we want to start sleep training. First, I always suggest to discuss with your pediatrician about sleep training, especially if you have a baby. You want to rule out any health concerns that might be underlying and causing the sleep issues. You want to check if there's any reflux, gastro issues, allergies, ear infections, and sleep apnea. Also, you want to ask them if they feel it's an appropriate time for you to start sleep training. As a general rule, I tend to advise starting after your child turns 4 months of age, and that is adjusted. So if your baby is premature, then you go 4 months from the due date, not from the day they were born. I tend to suggest this because they are more biologically ready to have independent sleep skills at this age. And if you plan to night wean or reduce the night feedings, it's also important to check with the pediatrician just to make sure that they feel this is appropriate. And you can also ask them how many feeds they think your little one should be doing as well. So next, I tend to suggest having a family meeting. I don't mean that you need to sit down at the table all together and discuss the sleep training, but I just kind of mean that we need to talk to everyone that's going to be involved in the process. Ensure that your partner is on board with sleep training. Work out what each of your tasks are going to be during the sleep training process. Who's going to be responsible for the nights, the bedtime routine, all those sort of things. So everybody knows what they're doing. And ensuring that everyone will remain consistent during the process, because that is really key to sleep training. It is also important to meet with and talk to all other people who will be involved in sleep training. This includes other caregivers, whether they be a nanny, daycare, or relatives who regularly care for your child. Sometimes daycares can't do exactly what you will do on home days, so it's good to know what they're going to be doing and how they can support the sleep training process. And gather help and support through family and friends. Sleep training isn't easy, and you'll probably want someone there to provide a listening ear or come and give you some help when you need it. So gathering up those supports is incredibly important. And also make sure that you're all going to have 2 weeks free at least to do the sleep training. Sleep training is not a 1 or 2 day thing. It can take a little while depending on your method to see the 100% results you're looking for. So next is to prepare the room. Whether it be that you're in your room or your child or baby has their own room, you need to make sure the room is conducive to sleep. This is incredibly important to help have success. You want to make sure that the room is very dark. We don't want light coming in that can interrupt your child or baby falling asleep and staying asleep throughout the night. So if you haven't already, start using some blackout blinds. I really can't stress this enough. It's so incredibly important. Keep the room cool and comfortable between about 65 and 70 degrees Fahrenheit. This is so that they're comfortable in their sleep, and also so that you don't have to worry that perhaps they're cold or perhaps they're hot. And you can even consider using a sound machine. This is really good for blocking out intermittent noises, whether it be you being able to go and do things around the house while they're asleep, watch TV, block out a noisy sibling, or also those loud noises that can happen in the early hours of the morning, like a garbage truck coming through. So then next, it's important to start educating yourself. And by educating yourself, I mean learning what your child needs in terms of their sleep. Start watching your baby's cues to work out their sleep patterns. When do they mostly need to nap? When do they mostly go down at night? All of those sort of things. You can even potentially start a sleep log, maybe for a couple of days just to see patterns. This could really help you when it comes to starting sleep training. because you want to determine the ideal nap times for your baby and make sure that your wake windows are optimal for bedtiming. Because if you are putting your baby down at the wrong time or your child at the wrong time, it can really make bedtime and nap times harder. An overtired baby will struggle more with their independent sleep skills than a baby who's well rested and you've got them down at just the right time. So also learning your baby's signs for tiredness and overtiredness. I put babies in there because I think it's a lot more important. Babies can often have short wake windows, so you really need to cue in on what their signs are for tiredness versus overtiredness. And for a little baby, crying can often be the sign that they've hit overtired mode. You know, it can be harder when your little one turns into a toddler and they're much better at masking their tiredness. But as an example, for bedtime, you might be looking at their behaviour around dinner time, and that will give you a good idea whether they're starting to get tired or not, and whether bedtime needs to be earlier on the later side. The next is to create a sleep plan. Now, this one is really important. We don't want to go into sleep training without a good solid plan. A good solid plan will help us have success, know what we're doing, when we need to do it, and just make it overall easier. So this is just a fun little sleep plan template that I've made in the past that gives you a good idea of all the different things that you need to think about when it comes to sleep training. So I often like to put in sleep goals because it just reminds you about why you're doing this, what you're hoping to improve, all of those sorts of things. And then we've got to think about the bedroom environment, just like I talked about before, the sleep schedule, you know, when they're going to wake up, go down for naps, bedtime, the nap time and bedtime routines. These are really important because they cue your baby's brain or child's brain in that sleep time is coming and can actually make falling asleep easier. You want to make sure that you know what your method is for teaching them independent sleep, so how you will respond at nap time, bedtime, if your baby wakes overnight or too early in the morning. It's always great to have a night feeding plan as well. You know, sometimes babies use feeding as a way to soothe back to sleep. So then what you want to do is have a plan and how you're going to go about that night feeding. You know, what times are you expecting that they actually need a feed versus the other times when they're using it to soothe. All of that sort of stuff. And if you have a look in this plan too, I've put a little thing to remember, is that when you do sleep training, sometimes babies will have a short flare-up of sleep problems approximately around 1 week in. And it's important to know that this is normal and to keep going, because sometimes you might think, oh, we haven't made the improvements, we may as well just stop. But it's not that. It's usually just a 1, maybe 2 night thing, and then they're back to their independent sleep skills. So now let's talk about the big one, the common methods. So the most direct method that you'll hear about is cry it out. This is where you place your little one in their crib or bed, awake and aware, then leave the room, not coming back in until morning. This isn't the method for everyone, and that's absolutely okay. What I will tell you is it's generally the fastest method to use to see results, but it does tend to involve more crying. And then the next method is timed checks. This is where you place your little one in their crib or bed, check on them in progressively longer intervals if they cry. I always suggest only if they cry, because if they're happy in their crib or bed, then that's wonderful. We love that. So you also increase the intervals daily, so they're getting more time to practice their falling asleep skills. Time checks can be great because you get to look in on your little one regularly while also providing them the opportunities that they need to self-soothe. But it's best to keep in mind that not all babies and children find this soothing to have their parent check in. Some of them find it frustrating and they may actually spend less time trying to fall asleep. The next method from that is fading away. You start by sitting in a chair next to a little one's crib or bed whenever they cry. You progressively move the chair further away until you are out of the room and they are falling asleep independently. This is a wonderful method for being there to support your child and for you to be able to see that they're okay. It takes longer than cry it out and time checks generally to see the results. And some kids do get stimulated having their parents sitting there. You know, they might spend their time trying to get their mum or dad's attention, or just not spend as much time laying there attempting to fall asleep. So it's important to bear this in mind if this is a method that you choose. And the last method is pick up, put down. Every time your baby cries, you pick them up and soothe them until they are calm. Then you place them back in the crib to try and fall asleep independently. And you keep doing this over and over again. Now, you might notice that I said baby in this method, and that's because this method tends to work best for babies under 6 months. And after that, it becomes very stimulating, and you may be less likely to have the success you're hoping for. The great thing about this method is it does really minimize crying. You are coming in and you are helping calm them down every time they get upset. But it is the longest method to have complete success. And it is very labor intensive for you. So those are all the different methods. So when you're trying to pick your sleep plan, you need to think about your method based on what you're comfortable with and what you feel that you can be consistent with, especially in the middle of the night when you might be half asleep and tired. It's worthwhile thinking what you feel that you can reasonably do at that time. So before you start, you've got your sleep plan organised, you know what method you're doing, you've got your timings of sleep, bedtime routine, all of those sort of things sorted. There are still a few things that you can do to set you up on the road for success for day one. So mentally prepare yourself to get started. It's not an easy thing you're going to do, this sleep training business. It's stressful, there's a lot of work, so you want to be mentally prepared and know that the day you start, you're really and truly ready. Remind yourself that you're doing this to help your little one. You've noticed that they really need this. They really need to learn their independent sleep skills. Maybe they're overtired and not getting enough sleep, and you know that this is going to help them get better rested. Just remind yourself that there will be some crying, and depending on your method might make a difference too, but it will improve as the days progress. And better sleep is important for everyone's health and well-being, not just making sure that your baby is better rested or your child is better rested, but you being better rested is important too. Now, a way to prepare for sleep training is also to make sure that your child is as well rested as possible the day you start. Because a well-rested child, as I've said before, falls asleep better. So it may mean you making sure that your child gets more sleep in the day or two leading up to sleep training, you know, doing more of what you have been doing that's not working, but just to make sure that they're sleeping longer and feel as rested as they can. So maybe if your little one is used to being held to sleep, you might just make sure that you're giving them lots of opportunity to do that just for the day or so leading up to sleep training. Once you start the sleep training though, that will be a thing of the past. And you need to get as much rest as possible to prepare for some sleepless nights, because I wish I could tell you that the first night everything was going to go wonderfully and they'll sleep a really long time. They may not. They may struggle. So you might have a few nights of sleepless nights. So you need to make sure that you're as rested as you can be going into this as well. So take shifts with your partner if you have one. Make sure that you each get some good night's sleep the night or two leading up to sleep training. Maybe ask a friend or relative to come and do a night shift the night before. And that way you're really as well rested as anyone can be for that first night of sleep training. So while sleep training, I've got a few bits of advice on what you can do while sleep training, just to keep yourself on track. So the first thing I suggest is, no matter what your sleep plan is and method you choose, I generally suggest to try it for at least 1 week before you decide that maybe things aren't working. It can take a little while to see those massive improvements that you're hoping for. And also, the older that your little one is, maybe you're sleep training a toddler, they're going to take even longer than a baby often, because they've got the added, sustenance. They're a toddler now, they've got a mind of their own, all of those sort of things. So always try something for at least 1 week before you decide maybe it's not working. Make sure that you're not providing mixed messages, that you're not sometimes doing one thing, sometimes doing another. Make sure that you're not maybe in the middle of the night when you're tired actually going in and helping them because, it's gotten too much or anything like that. You need to provide the same message all the time to have the best improvements. If things get tough, have a plan. Maybe you're struggling a little bit, so you call a family member or friend to come and help you out. Maybe you might think, I can't do this alone, I'll call a sleep consultant to help. I would absolutely love to help any one of you make those improvements. And sometimes that's just what you need, is someone there with you to make sure that your plan's good and to ask for advice whenever you need it. So as I just said, utilize your supports and stay consistent. I can't stress this one enough. No mixed messages, stay consistent, and you'll have the better results, because when you're not consistent, this is when things can derail, especially overnight when you're exhausted or half asleep. One thing I tell parents I work with is to think about what daytime mum would do. Now, before I go further, I might just see if anyone's asked any questions. No, I can't see any questions. Okay, I'll keep going. So where to from here? You've got all this information on how to prepare for successful sleep training. What's next? For some of you, it might be you're feeling confident to get your sleep plan up and running and go and do sleep training on your own. But for some people, you might just think, I need some help, and that's okay. So if you feel like you need to get support to get going, you can either schedule a consultation so that we can formulate that sleep plan together and you can get support to implement it. I even do just sleep plans for some families because that's all they want, and they want to go off and do the sleep training on their own. So there's many different options in that respect. Or join one of my sleep clubs for babies 6 to 12 months or toddlers 12 to 24 months and do your sleep training with the support of other mums. I love these sleep clubs. I think it's wonderful for you to have group support while you sleep train together, and I get to know some wonderful mums and dads all together at once. It's wonderful. So I'll tell you a bit more about the sleep club. For this next sleep club for babies and for toddlers, I'm offering it at a low cost of only $100, which I think is pretty amazing for what those sleep clubs provide. So this little ad here is actually for the baby sleep club, but it's generally the same thing for the toddler one as well. It's just that I've got a slightly different ad. Now, I will email you all the details for those sleep clubs as well, but you can find them on my website. And if you just give me a second while I'm talking. I'll actually put them in the chat box as well. So the sleep clubs basically involve 3 weeks of support while you really work on your baby or toddler's sleep. In the first week, we talk about all the different aspects that you need to think about in depth when it comes to addressing sleep. So we'll talk about, what your timing of sleep should be, and, things like all the sleep training methods in more depth. What we do is a couple of meetings where we talk about all of these sorts of things, along with daily information that I share with you. And as I share all this information, I'm actually giving you all the tools that you need to come up with your sleep plan. And I even offer to review your sleep plans to make sure that they are going to, give you the best success for your little one as well. And then in the second 2 weeks, the aim is that you're starting doing your sleep training, and that I'm there with you throughout the process so that you can actually work on the sleep. So to give you an idea of one of the sleep club members that I had in the sleep club in September, this was a review she gave of the sleep club. I joined Miley's sleep club in September with a group of other mums, and the experience has been wonderful. Miley spent 3 weeks devoting her time to helping us set and reach our sleep goals for our little ones. She was extremely hands-on, answering any questions almost immediately. It was like having our own personal sleep expert on hand whenever needed. She expressed a genuine interest in getting to know our babies and our unique situations and sleep issues. It is clear that she has a wealth of knowledge about infant sleep and was very thoughtful and eager to share her advice. I also really liked how she empowered us to make our own decisions about what we were comfortable with in regards to sleep training, and her advice never felt pushy. I would recommend using Miley to help tackle sleep issues for your baby, whether it be naps, overnight, or both. So I'd absolutely love to have you in one of these sleep clubs. You get a 3 weeks worth of support from a private Facebook group where you learn all you need to know to do your sleep training, and have 2 weeks of support while you implement it. And for only $100, I don't think you can ask for a better way to do it, because you have everything you need. But honestly, I also feel like with all the information that you've got from preparing for successful sleep training, and if you do your homework on when your child or baby should be napping and sleeping and all of those sort of things, you can also do it on your own. It's just whatever you feel most comfortable with. Now let me just check if anybody had any questions before we say goodbye. No? Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being here with me today and learning all about preparing for successful sleep training. I want to wish you the best of luck, and I hope you have a successful experience sleep training your little one. And if you have any trouble, you can absolutely come to me for help. I'd be more than happy to help you. Thank you very much. And have a lovely day. Goodbye.